So it's great to be at Ouishare, and I've traveled 18,000 miles to come here to talk about climate change, which is kind of amusing, isn't it? So this last panel had some excellent work. It's not working. I want to start very depressing, and then I will get less depressing. So I'm just going to go straight into the depressing part, and then we will move out. So the World Bank produced a report that's about 1.5 years old called 4 Degrees, Turn Down the Heat. And what is that? It's saying that by 2100, if every country does exactly what it was supposed to do, we will be 4 degrees global average climate change increase. And if you're like me, you say, okay, what does plus 4 degrees global average climate change actually mean? I have no idea. What is it going to be like to feel that? So I did some research, and I went and looked at when was the last time we were minus 4 degrees climate change. So the last time we were minus 4 degrees, where I'm standing today was under a couple kilometers of ice. So the difference between 35,000 years ago, minus 4 degrees, and today is several kilometers of ice, and we're going to go forward plus 4 degrees in 85 years. So just imagine what that will be feeling like. And to make it worse, when I was looking at this, at the source material, when we talk about global average climate change, of course it's hotter over the land, which is like, obviously, never even occurred to me. So the predictions that are over land, it'll be plus 6 degrees centigrade hotter. So if plus 4 was horrid, plus 6 is going to be worse. And even worse still, that we're supposed to be seeing this by 2060 under business as usual. If countries don't make the changes they're supposed to be making. So this is a really horrifying reality. Everyone's talking about climate change as if do it for your grandchildren. Forget your grandchildren. Are you planning to live 15 or 20 more years? This is about you right now. The speed and the scale, I think, is really underappreciated. Just recently, the Intergovernment Panel for Climate Change just released a report. They're always updating it. A couple of weeks ago, and they had this very great sentence. The difference between plus 2 degrees centigrade climate change, which is what we're trying to plan for, and plus 4 is the difference between driving on an icy road at 50 kilometers an hour versus 145. It's risky at 50, but deadly at the higher speeds. So this really, really matters. And we're shooting for the risky part, is what we're shooting for. I mean, it's a really horrific and very high, fast-paced thing that's going on. A friend of mine, Bani Banerjee, had a very nice sentence that I like. You can't solve exponential problems with linear solutions. And we are constantly trying to do that. This is a problem. The pace and scale is phenomenal and really underappreciated. We have to get on with it. And so I want to tell you about a new organizational model called Peers Incorporated that I'll describe to you that for me is really my only point of optimism on how we're going to get out of this. So Peers Incorporated is people working on platforms, turning excess capacity into abundance. And Adam and the circular economy are talking a little bit about this. So there's 3 components, this excess capacity, the people, and the platforms. And you'll recognize this organizational structure. If you think about Facebook and eBay, Linux, YouTube, Skype, Wikipedia, these companies and efforts that we've been talking about over the last 10 years with just amazement, when I look at them, what do I see? I see that this is excess capacity and us working on platforms. Without us individuals, these companies are nothing. These ideas are nothing. It is our contribution that makes them sing. So just to pick out some of these, Skype. What is an amazing thing? They built a telecommunications company, which is incredibly expensive and hard to do, based on my laptop, my data connection, my built-in video camera. And they built a telecommunications company. So looking at this model, it has some really amazing attributes. And just one last piece. If I think about excess capacity, what I want to describe excess capacity is something that already exists, that's already been paid for, and there's more value to get out of it. If we look at the industrial economy, why did we ever invent companies? Why do we have governments? They're to do things that we as individuals aren't very good at. And so what are those things? That's why did we ever create a company? And what did industrialization really do for us? Companies do things that are long investments over many years. I certainly can't invest millions of dollars over many years. Things that require many, many kinds of intelligence. I only have one kind of intelligence, so if it's going to require a lot of intelligence integrated, I can't do that. Applying standards and consistency, Robin Chase, can't create any standard because I'm just one person. You don't care what I think. It takes a bigger entity with bigger push to create standards and consistency. And so this is why we have industry. On the flip side, individuals are incredibly good at things that during the Industrial Revolution and the last 150 years, companies have done, but they hate doing. And what would that be? That would be localization, customization, and specialization. These are things that we as individuals are really, really good at, and companies hate doing because it's expensive and annoying. If you think of what industrialization meant, it meant standardizing things, building one thing the same every time. But we individuals can do this localization, customization, specialization, and tap into our social networks because that's what we do. That's what we as individuals like to do. These things are complementary. It's fabulous. And it's this complementarity that we can now tap into thanks to the internet that makes finding specific things much, much easier. So it's this combination that I'm calling Peers Incorporated, this new organizational structure that is now unlocked, and it's very compelling, and we will see more and more of it. It's happening in every sector of the economy around the world because of its attributes. So the incorporated side, which can be governments and companies and universities, they are building a platform for participation, only doing the stuff that they do best. Meanwhile, the peers, individuals and small local companies, are providing what they do best, which is the diversity of offering. So this, making it simpler, I boil it down to this, and it's swimming in a sea of excess capacity. When we think about this organizational structure, there's a complementarity and symbiotic between the two sides. If one side tries to take too much, the other side won't want to play. So it's really a collaboration in a very strong way. The incorporated side, because it's a platform, the sheer platformness gives you economies of scale and high growth. If you get a platform right, it's very, very hard. That's what you get. And peers, because your peers deliver diversity, and when you have diversity, you get innovation, resilience, and redundancy. I see this business model as the business model for our times. In a very high pace of change and rapidly evolving world, this is the kind of platform that you need to do innovation, experimentation, adaptation, and moving quickly. The sharing economy is a subset for me of the Peers Inc. opportunity. It's very resource efficient, as Adam pointed out. It's highly scalable. It's the front edge of our transition to the new economy. And it exercises our community muscle. And this is a piece that I think the sharing economy in particular can be doing. When we think about the horrific pace of change that's happening ahead and the disasters that Adam was pointing out, it is community that is the line of first defense, and it's community that's going to pull us through. You have to have this community around you. So I just want to do 3 amazing things to counteract the horror of before. The Peers Incorporated business model can change the laws of physics. If we think about Airbnb, in its 4th year of operations, had built as many rooms as the largest hotel chain in the world, the Intercontinental Hotel Chain. 650,000 rooms is what was available to rent on Airbnb in year 4. The Intercontinental, that had been around for 65 years, it had taken them 65 years to build these hotels. If in 2000 I had said to you, I want to build the biggest hotel in the world, I want to compete with Intercontinental Hotel Group, every single one of us would have said, good luck. Yeah, you're going to have to go find the land, you're going to have to build the hotel, you're going to have to get the architect, you're going to have to get the financing, you're going to have to hire the staff, you're going to have to put people, furniture in it, you're going to have to make every single one of those succeed in order to do it quickly, and you cannot do it. Every one of us would have said, physics dictates a certain pace of growth. Let me show you. So this is business as usual asset building over 4 years, this is the trajectory of how fast you can grow building physical objects. Here is Airbnb's growth. So when we think of the size and scale of what has to happen to address the climate problem, it really, really has to be at this kind of speed and scale, because it has to be worldwide and it has to happen fast. Since we're in Paris, and I love BlaBlaCar, here is the same thing with BlaBlaCar's growth numbers. And we know that BlaBlaCar transports 1 million passengers a month, the same as 2,500 TGV or 2,500 747s, yet they didn't have to build a track or buy a train. We have to move this quickly, and we can do it with the Peers Incorporated business model. This is a clip from Apollo 13.
Situation brewing with the carbon dioxide.
We had a CO2 filter problem on the lunar module.
5 filters on the limb.
Which were meant for 2 guys for a day and a half. So I told the doctor.
They're already up to 8 on the gauges. Anything over 15, and you get impaired judgment, blackouts, the beginnings of brain asphyxia.
This just isn't a contingency we've remotely looked at.
Those CO2 levels are going to be getting toxic.
Well, I suggest you gentlemen invent a way to put a square peg in a round hole. Rapidly.
Okay, people, listen up. People upstairs handed us this one, and we gotta come through. We gotta find a way to make this fit into the hole for this, using nothing but that. Let's get it organized.
Okay, let's build a filter.
Better get some coffee going.
So when I think about the situation we're living in today, governments and people keep thinking we're going to have some technology fix, it's going to be great, we're going to introduce and discover some new kind of fuel, and we're going to build the power plants. If you start with that today, it's going to be 30 years before you start feeling the CO2 benefits. We don't have that kind of time. We have to start fixing it right now with the stuff we have right now. Another thing, Peers Incorporated can change the pace of learning beyond what is humanly possible. If we think about how quickly we can learn, we know that companies, we always thought that, I as an individual can learn at a certain pace, and a company can learn a little bit faster because they have lots of people. I want to give you an example of Duolingo. Have you guys heard of Duolingo? Duolingo is 20 months old, and they are teaching people how to speak a second language for free. And on the back of that, the excess capacity of that language learning is translating right now CNN and BuzzFeed into Spanish and French, and that's their revenue model. So the language learning is for free, the translation services is how they make their revenue on the back. So let me just tell you about Duolingo. Language learning. The standard for language learning is what can you learn in one semester at university. It takes 120 hours to do 1 semester of French or English online, on college. The Rosetta Stone was, until now, the world standard for the best way to learn a language. So if you were a consultant or a diplomat or a businessman, you would go buy the Rosetta Stone tapes. They've been around for 20 years, and they would say, hey, you know what, can you slide that a little bit over? They would say, can you slide that slide? Well, anyway, it's 54 hours of learning with the Rosetta Stone that gives you 120 hours of semester level language acquisition. So Rosetta Stone, we're so great. We can do it in 54 hours. Duolingo, you guys are missing it here. Duolingo, in 20 months, will now give you a semester's level of college language in 34 hours. So they've gone from 120 hours of learning to 34 hours with their online methods. And why is that? So with this, when I'm a university professor, I teach my students, I have my 40 students, I have my 1 semester, I learn how I'm a good teacher or a bad teacher, and I have my experience with my 40 students. In my entire career, maybe I'll have 60 chances to improve, and I'll see a couple thousand students. With Duolingo, they now have 10 million people learning languages on Duolingo. They're teaching more people how to speak than all the children in the US public school systems right now. He was telling me, the founder CEO, that he can conduct 100 experiments being used by 100,000 people, and in 48 hours, he can tell you definitively which is the better way to teach a language. So if we think of the Peers Incorporated method, we have a platform that can see how its process and systems are used and make those improvements, as well as understand best practices with hundreds of thousands and millions of people, get those best practices and push them out to everyone. So we now have this double learning method so we can learn very, very quickly. I don't have time, I'm going to pass this, but if Google Trends of Rosetta Stone versus Duolingo, I'm not passing it. Look at how quickly Duolingo took over from Rosetta Stone in the 20 months. And for an entrepreneur and startups, this is the type of trend that gives you amazing hope. So the third thing that the Peers Incorporated business model do is it combines computing power with the best of pattern recognition. So we always think about, we know that human brains have not been matched by computers yet, and that we think of supercomputers and how they can do these amazing calculations at amazing pace. With the Peers Incorporated business model, we can have both of those things working simultaneously, the best of what people have to offer and the best of computing power. So we can do things really quickly if we start doing it. So just to end, let me just go back. It's missing the third thing. So the three things I think we need to be focused on around the world, and the third one is not showing up here, is number one, we need to exploit excess capacity, not only physical assets, but networks, interests, things that are used at different times of day. Think about excess capacity in a very, very broad way. It's a great place for innovation, and it's a place we need to focus. Two, we need to build and exercise this community muscle so that we are, so we have community muscle memory and a community muscle reflex when bad things happen. And the third that's not showing up there is we need to focus on platforms for participation, because those are the only things that have a chance of scaling and meeting our needs. So if you have a good idea, make sure you put it onto a platform and go work on other platforms that are already scaled. So my friend Tim DeChristopher, who was the first person who was arrested in the United States for civil disobedience around climate change, he had this wonderful sentence: "We are on track for such rapid and intense change, we might as well steer towards the world we want to see." And for me, the world we want to see is a sustainable new economy, and the sharing community is a significant piece of that and a front runner. Thank you.